Sandfall Interactive recently received 9 awards from the Game Awards for Expedition 33, which became the winningest single game for the show of all time, including winning Game of the Year. I have not played every single Game of the Year, though I have played many, and I can't think of a better candidate to achieve such a feat than Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I think that they deserved every single award that they won, even Best Indie Game, though I admit I was at first a hater of the fact that they won that one. You know, you see the budget, and it feels a little ridiculous that a game that had $10 million behind it could be considered for Best Indie Game. But after having heard Sandfall's story and the insane journey they went on to get this game made, it couldn't be more indie than that. They are the quintessential example of an indie team succeeding to the fullest extent. Just because they were able to land an incredible publishing deal shouldn't take away from that. The game's director, Broche, and art director, Maxon Francome, left Ubisoft just to create their passion project and literally were asking people for help on Reddit. The composer, Lorien Testard, who created one of the greatest game soundtracks I have ever heard, was found on a random niche indie game forum. Jennifer Svedberg-Yen, who eventually became the game's lead writer, started as a voice actor and had no writing experience or voice acting experience for that matter, and then went on to head the writing of one of the most impactful and heartfelt stories I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. If this story were a movie, it would be one of the best movies I've ever seen. If it were a book, it would be one of the best books I've ever read. But it is a game. I say that so this does not sound like a reductive qualifier. This is the single greatest story to any game I have ever played. This game kind of reminds me of this Letterboxd review from Cosmonaut Marcus for Everything Everywhere All at Once, where he said, "Watch it and have fun before film Twitter tells you it's overrated." It feels like this game, after winning all these awards, many people have turned on it and acted like it was undeserving of such praise. Ironically, I almost stopped playing this game and pivoted to covering a different one. I started playing it not realizing the Game Awards was literally like 3 days away. I saw that it won almost every single award, and I thought I didn't want to cover it anymore because everyone would be talking about it anyways, which makes sense considering all the praise and news and the eyes that would be on it after the award show. I figured I would be late to the hype train. Don't be like me and think that the game is too popular to play or that if everyone loves it, it couldn't possibly be that good. Luckily, I was already like 5 hours into the game. I was already enjoying it, so I figured I would just finish it, do a video anyways. Now it's one of my favorite games of all time, and I have so much to say about it. I'm going to break this video up into non-spoilers and then spoilers like I did the last video. But I will say, the reason to play this game is the story. The gameplay is really great as well, which I'll get into, but I obviously can't talk about the story without getting into spoilers. So if you just listen to the beginning of the video and think that the game doesn't sound super incredible, just know that it is, and you will just have to experience it for yourself. First, I think I'll talk about the visuals, because the game is just so striking. You could literally stop anywhere in the game, look up, take a screenshot, and it would be wallpaper worthy. The game was made in Unreal Engine 4, and then later they got migrated over to Unreal 5, which definitely helps the visuals. But it is still crazy that a team of only about 30 people were able to make a game that looks better than 95% of AAA games made nowadays. While Unreal does have the capability to create a visually striking game, so does every other game engine, really. You still need to have the direction and the expertise to make it look this good. I think some people will just chalk it up to the engine doing all the heavy lifting, but I've used Unreal before, and I can promise you, you can still make ugly games with it. I also think that it escapes the generic qualities that come with the engine, because the art direction is just so spectacular. A game like Elden Ring is similar in that the art direction is what makes the game so beautiful, not just high fidelity and graphics. The game also runs decent, unlike most other games in Unreal. Luckily, because it would be a shame to have to view these areas through a stuttering 20 FPS mess. From the foresty greens of Spring Meadows, the cool blues and greens of Flying Waters, and the deep reds of Ancient Sanctuary, and all the other areas later in the game that are so distinct yet so incredible looking. By the end of the game, you can look back and recall at least an image in your mind of each location. Maybe the name slips your mind, but it would be hard to forget the colors and grandeur of every place you visit. I did play on PC, so maybe the game doesn't look so great or run so smooth on consoles, but with a good PC, I had no problem staying above 60 FPS at 1440p. The game also has very few bugs. It's easy to say that when the game's been out for so long, but I still appreciate that I didn't have any story beats or combat ruined by a bug. The only one I ever ran into was when climbing the handholds. Sometimes my character would get stuck and be unable to move no matter what I did, which forced me to have to reload from the previous save. That was definitely a little frustrating, but the game saves often enough that it really wasn't a huge problem. And I think it only happened 3 times across 30 hours or so. The next thing I have to talk about is the music. My god, what an absolutely fucking incredible soundtrack. There are 154 tracks at over 8 hours on the game's official album on Spotify. Granted, some of those pieces are the same song in a different key or played with a different instrument or at different paces, but most are completely unique. And they are absolute bangers. Side note, I love that they organize the album into the sections of the game in chronological order. It makes it so much easier to find a certain piece that you associate with a certain story beat or section. Like I said earlier, this is one of the best video game soundtracks I've ever heard. It may be my favorite of all time. That distinction has gone to Bloodborne for the longest time, but there's just so much beauty to be found in each of these pieces. It is ironic to me that video games are the most prominent medium, keeping classical style orchestral pieces alive and thriving. A medium that some people would look down on and think is childish is creating some of the most beautiful music that's being made today. Those same people probably listen to classics like Mozart or Beethoven without realizing similar compositions are being created for what, in their opinion, is the least mature art form. The last non-gameplay focused thing I wanted to talk about before spoilers are the characters. Obviously, you can't have a good story without good characters, and I can assure you that the characters in this game are fantastic. They feel so real and fleshed out. The world is obviously pretty fantastical and grand, but they manage to keep the characters feeling grounded despite that. Very early on, you can tell that the people of Lumiere are fully realized and complex with motivations and backstories, which really does wonders for building the world. There's a history that's reflected in the people, and I think it's a great start for what will be a very character-driven story in the end. I think that one of the weakest points in most games is the characters, and way too many games, they don't change or evolve in any way. Luckily, that is not the case in this game at all. They start out layered and complex, and they end even more so. The voice acting is some of the best I've heard in any game. Andy Serkis and Jennifer English were easily the standouts. Obviously, Jennifer English won Best Performance for her role as Mael, but I have to reiterate what an incredible job she did. And Andy Serkis is literally a legend, so it's no surprise he absolutely killed it. But shout out to Charlie Cox. I absolutely love Daredevil, so I know he's a great actor, but there's a big difference between acting and voice acting, as can be seen in some truly awful voice acting performances from great actors.
The Hive haven't been on Earth in centuries. That wizard came from the moon.
But he absolutely knocked his role out of the park and brought the character of Gustav to life. So kudos to him for doing such a fantastic job for what seems to be his first acting role, as far as I can tell at least. The combat is also a highlight of the game. I understand that turn-based combat may not be for everyone, but I find it incredibly engaging. I play a lot of board games, and I played Divinity Original Sin 2 back before Baldur's Gate 3. I've even recently been going back through all the Pokemon games because I missed out on them as a child, so I have absolutely no problems with turn-based combat. In fact, I love it. Adding to that is the real-time nature of the dodging and parrying, which I think only adds to it. I absolutely love a good timed parry, and being able to implement that into turn-based combat makes for an interesting reward in between contemplating your next move. It also adds to the scale and ferocity of the enemies. It makes sense that these huge monsters would do a lot of damage to just a normal human, so it feels correct to have these enemies actually do massive damage to the party, but giving you the opportunity to not only completely negate that damage, but to do massive damage in return. It just fits the world and the story very well. The build variety is quite engaging as well. Each playable character has their own fighting style, and each weapon can completely change how you play them. The Lumina's and Picto system, while admittedly is a little confusing at first, does add quite a bit to each build and can further change how each player plays. It's not the most complex build crafting or anything, but it's enough that you can change the characters to play how you want them to and to find a build that you personally enjoy. Traversing through areas does become a little repetitive throughout the game. It's alleviated a little by being able to skip quite a few encounters, which I basically didn't do ever, but it's nice that they made it so that you can, if you're getting really tired of fighting the same 5 to 6 enemies in an area. But every area does feel a little samey to traverse through. They're visually spectacular and unique, but not so much gameplay-wise. It's a bunch of smaller encounters, some side areas that lead to dead ends, and some okay loot. A couple on-the-rails climbing sections, one mini-boss, maybe two, and then the big boss at the end of the area with a continuation of the story. It's not to the point where it's grating, but I would have loved to see some more experimentation with areas. Because what we have now is very much predictable, made worse by the fact that the movement in this game is a little janky. There's a lot of wonky physics where you slide around and can't really move correctly, or a section that looks easily traversable, but when you try to walk or jump over it, you just slide back down. I understand that this is a small team, so they couldn't create these absolutely massive areas with every place you can see be traversable, but I would have appreciated if they would have taken a little bit more time to differentiate where you can and can't traverse. It feels like the developers were more focused on making fun combat, the story, and the visuals, so a lot of insignificant things fell by the wayside, like the wonky physics, some clunky menuing, and other small things here and there. A great example is the thing that upgrades your party and weapons back at camp. It's annoying that you have to choose to upgrade your weapon, and then when you go to back out, it kicks you all the way back out of his dialogue box, makes you interact with him again just to pick the option to upgrade your party. There are definitely little things like this in the game that can be frustrating, but I give the game a huge pass because of how fantastic it is in all the other areas. There's a point where it makes sense to spend more of the development time in places that actually matter than in these small instances like that. A small thing that I really appreciate is when you're selecting dialogue, you get to select the exact words you're about to use. There are far too many games where you pick a dialogue option because it seems like the thing that you want to say, only for the character to say something completely different and almost the exact opposite of what you were trying to say. Anyways, if you're one of the few people that have not played this game, please do so. I truly think it's a game that everyone should try if they play games at all. There are people that don't play games for their story at all, but the story is just so incredible, I would make an exception for this game. There are people that hate turn-based combat, but they have the real-time actions that you can take, so it's not just waiting around for the enemy to take their turn. So if you have any interest in playing the game, turn the video off soon, because I'm about to talk about the part of the game that I love the most, the story. But I am going to give a short description of the premise of the game, mostly for my wife and sister who I know will be watching and have absolutely no clue what the game is about. So 67 years before the game started, there was a fracture that broke the city of Lumiere off away from the rest of the world. With the fracture came monstrous creatures called Nevrons. The city isolated itself on the island by creating this dome shield to protect themselves from the Nevrons. But with the fracture came the beginning of the Paintress's countdown. Every year, starting with 100, the Paintress in a distant part of the world at the monolith paints an ever-decreasing number, and anyone whose age matches that number disappears and dies. The people of Lumiere created the expeditions to traverse the outside lands to try and find a way to stop the Paintress from killing any more people, and the game begins just before Expedition 33 is about to depart. If that doesn't at least pique your interest a little, I don't know what will. Spoilers starting now. The game has a fantastic start where you walk around the city of Lumiere as Gustav and Sophie. You're immediately invested because you learn that they broke up because Gustav wanted to have children and Sophie didn't, knowing that they would be destined to die at a young age. Inherently interesting because not only is it understandable from both sides, but it is a truly complex issue that I could see many people in the city having debates about constantly. On one hand, you get to bring someone into the world, give them life, and on the other, they never existed in the first place. It's the classic, is it better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all? And then you walk around and speak to people as Sophie and Gustav, and it feels like such a tight-knit community. Everyone seems to know everyone, and there's this slight feeling of uneasiness as the Gommage grows closer. Before you know it, you find the characters at the docks, and you see the paintress paint a new number. I have to say, this surprised me. I was still getting my bearings on things, and I knew that the expedition was starting soon, so I assumed that they would leave before the Gommage actually happened. It would make sense that the game would have this tension in Gustav, who is seemingly the main character, to try and do everything in his power to stop the paintress before the love of his life is gone forever. So when they kill her here, I should have known that this game was going to be completely different than what I expected. The expedition showing up on the beach after the departure was a great moment. Renoir showing up with this thunderous cane, which is unbelievably good sound design.
Get ready.
And almost instantly wipes out the entire expedition. It's such a great moment because you instantly have a villain that you can hate that must be taken seriously. It completely flies in the face that you've been told so far in the game. There are no people in this world above the age of 33, yet there one is. Such a compelling start to the game. Later, when Gustav wakes up and realizes the devastation, sees all the dead expeditioners, he sits down and considers giving up and committing suicide. I think this was also a fantastic moment because it's shown how positive Gustav is, how he truly believes that he can accomplish their goals. And then his entire world is rocked and shows the desperation that it created. It's also a great way to show that the game is going to take itself seriously and have adult themes. It's something that I appreciate the developers took a risk on because games with themes this heavy are not for everyone. Then Lune stops him and convinces him to continue on. They have some great moments between the two of them. Their dialogue feels so realistic, reasonable for the situation they're in. Like back at the camp when they're interrupting each other, having this what feels like a very real argument.
You and I! Come on, we always said the future of Lumiere is more important than
Any individual life, yes.
Do you still believe that? Do you still believe that?
I just love when a game puts this much effort into the dialogue to make it feel natural and hold true to the characters that are actually speaking it. Later, after you find Maël in this mysterious mansion, the tone lightens considerably. Gustav is clearly relieved to find his adopted sister, and it gives him the hope he needs to feel if they are going to have a chance again. The game definitely gives you hints that there is a grander story at play here, but the story does slow down quite a bit after this. There's an extended period of time where you're just kind of going to places because a character told you about a lead, and you have no real substantive objective. At the Gestural Village, you get your fourth party member in CL, who admittedly I find to be the least compelling of the group. I didn't really play with her much, because I just didn't feel like she was nearly as fleshed out as Gustav, Lune, and Maël. Also, I'm the type of player in Pokemon that likes to pick my team as early as possible and stick with them unless absolutely necessary, and I already had my 3 party members and I was happy with them. Then you go and find Esquier to get across the ocean. While I do love Esquier, he is a fun character and is voice acted excellently.
That's because you're all cousins. Same, but different.
I found this part of the game to be really slowing down significantly. It reminded me of God of War, where you'd be told to go somewhere to do something, just to get there and be told that you actually need to go somewhere else first. I wasn't having a bad time or anything, but I was definitely questioning all the praise that this game was getting, because the start was so strong, but not much had really happened since. But then you get to the Stone Wave Cliffs. The lead up to the Lampmaster and the reveal of his unsettling design got me pumped up. Little did I know that after the fight, the game would destroy me.
Ooh, what about that one?
Renoir showing up here in this small moment between Gustave and Maëlle was so unexpected. There'd just been this big boss fight, and for him to show up out of nowhere. Then he traps Maëlle and starts fighting Gustave. They established that Renoir is incredibly powerful, so I wondered how the game was going to get them out of this situation. I knew they were going to kill Gustave because he was the main character. Games never do that. But then after the fake fight you have with him, and the second cutscene starts playing, I realized I don't know these developers. I have no clue what they're capable of. And then they did it. They fucking did it. They killed my boy Gustave. I genuinely was shocked. I did not see that coming at all. The game opens with him. They gave him such a compelling backstory, hired a very popular actor to play him, gave you all these upgrades for him. I just never could have seen it coming. It reminded me so much of a Game of Thrones. It instantly created this sense that I have to finish this game and see it through. It also made me hate Renoir. Obviously, he was already a villain and a formidable force, but he just killed a bunch of people I knew nothing about. But once he killed Gustave, I hated this man. I wanted to kill him so badly and get revenge. And then the game drops Verso onto you to replace Gustave. I've got to say, this was such a pivotal point of the game. They give you this character to love and then ask you to replace him. I can definitely see a world where you are playing up to this point and you hate Verso as a character, and it removes all interest in playing the game. Not only does he have no chemistry with any of the surviving characters, but he's also this blank slate that, if not done correctly, could completely ruin all the goodwill built up with a character like Gustave. Luckily for me at least, they nailed it. Verso is also a very compelling character. Not only does he quickly build a rapport with the rest of the group, but he also is clearly hiding something, which makes the player want to continue to learn more about him and why he's here and who he truly is. I think it's incredibly challenging to write a compelling character who is secretive, because they reveal so little that it's easy to make their whole personality being secretive. Fortunately, Verso is fleshed out beyond that and becomes as good of a character as Gustave in the end, at least to me. Although I do find it weird that you don't really get a true tutorial for how to play Verso. Everyone else you do, but they just drop him on you with like 45 upgrade points and 18 skill points and tell you to have at it. Obviously I figured it out, so it's not that bad, but strange that they didn't give you a true tutorial for him. After this, the game clearly slows back down a bit, but the momentum of the previous act kept me going for hours. I really appreciated the time that the game takes to pay respects to Gustave. It would make sense that Maëlle would be completely traumatized by losing her brother/father figure, and I'm glad that the game just doesn't try to move past it. It would have been way easier for the game to just kill him off for shock value and move on, but it takes the next couple of hours to explore the effect that death can have on people and the grief without feeling rushed. Deaths that big should have rippling effects through the story, and this game does a great job of that. Gustave is never forgotten as the game continues. It also gives a chance for Verso to get to know the group better. As they grieve, he tries to help them, which not only endears him to the audience, but it gives them time to have some one-on-one conversations with all these characters. This game just does an incredible job with all these small moments. Its characters and the whole game really is built off the backs of these small moments. It's what gets you invested in all the characters and makes you want to get to know them more. From here on, you slowly get drip-fed clues and revelations about who Renoir and Verso and his sister are. At this point, I figured it was pretty obvious that Maëlle and the white-haired girl with Renoir were the same person. I wasn't sure how, but they just looked almost identical, and she clearly had an affinity for Maëlle, as she kept trying to interact with her. But then we learn that she's actually Verso's sister, and her real name is Alicia. The game definitely got me. I'm glad that they didn't spend too much time on the group finding out Verso was Renoir's son. It totally feels like something they could have belabored and had all the characters make a big deal of, but I appreciate that they see his actions and clearly see that that's not something they need to be worried about at all. But it does lay this seed of doubt in them that he's hiding even more. From there, you get to go fight the Axons, which are great. Their ridiculous size and the build-up to both of them was a lot of fun. I love when the game makes you face off against these larger-than-comprehension bosses. This was the point where I felt like the game was getting a little too easy. These huge fights both took me only 2 tries. I had definitely been doing some side stuff, but not a ridiculous amount, yet I felt way too strong for this point in the game. I had not even been buying the color of Lumina from all the merchants to compensate for the fact that I was consistently only using 3 characters in combat. Despite that, I feel like the game had gotten a little too easy. Once I got inside the monolith, I was actively avoiding encounters. Not only because I felt a little overleveled, but because I was dying to know how the story ended and how all of it connected. Climbing the monolith, you come across a small section of every area you traverse to get here, and see a small interaction with the paintress and different members of her family. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that the little boy she was speaking to was Verso, and that she was his mother. I didn't realize it until right before you get to the top and see Renoir. The final fight with Renoir really confused me. I kind of thought that this would be like a big reveal of what's really going on, but it honestly just left me more confused. And then when you get to the paintress and fight her, that really confused the shit out of me. You get hints that you're actually in a canvas, and she talks about how you're Renoir's creation and that you're not hers. After defeating her, you wake up as Alicia, who looks exactly like Maëlle, but in the real world outside of the canvas you were in. I mean, at this point I was so confused, I was worried I would need to look up an explanation for the story because it was going totally over my head, which obviously I didn't want to do. I didn't want someone else's opinions to affect mine. Little did I know that there was still a couple hours left of the game, and everything would make sense in the end. It's very rare that a story can turn completely on its head in the back 10% and feel earned, but this game manages to do it so well. Throughout this epilogue, you learn that you've been stuck inside of a painting. Verso's painting. Verso created the painting as a child with his sister Clea, which explains some of the whimsical and silly things throughout the game, like the gestuals. They feel so out of place in such a cruel world. Outside of the painting, the real Verso died in a fire saving his sister Alicia, and his mother, Aline, was so grief-stricken that she entered the canvas and painted her family inside of it. This is the Renoir that tries to stop you from getting to the monolith and killing the paintress, which would send Aline back to the real world. Verso still acts and behaves like the real one, which is why he sees his mother drowning in grief and wanted to send her back to the real world instead of letting her slowly lose herself in this made-up world. The real Renoir, her husband, also entered the canvas and is trying to get her out, which is why he manifests as the curator who saves Maëlle, upgrades your weapon, and upgrades your party. He's trying to assist you in getting his wife out, and that's why he kills the painted Renoir. The Maëlle we play in the game is actually the real-world Alicia, but because she is also so grief-stricken from her brother's death, she just forgets who she truly is and believes that she actually is Maëlle from Lumiere. The deformed version of Alicia and the canvas was actually painted by Aline, the paintress, because that's how she sees her daughter and wants to punish her for being the reason Verso died, which is just so tragic. You also learn that the paintress has been painting the number on the monolith, not as a condemnation for the people of Lumiere, but as a warning, because the real Renoir is trying to destroy the whole painting to force Aline out, which she's trying to stop but is slowly losing, which is why only some people die every year and not just everyone. Back in the painting, Alicia confronts her father and wants to stay inside with her newfound family because she hates what her life has become outside of the canvas due to being maimed by the fire and how her mother has been treating her. Her father knows that if she stays in the canvas for too long, she will become lost and die in the real world. This is one of the only games that's made me want to stop fighting the final boss. Knowing that her father is just trying to save her, and knowing that Alicia just wants to stay to be with her brother, even though she knows he's not real, is genuinely heartbreaking. Once you defeat him, she convinces him that she's not going to stay forever, in just a little while, and that she would leave the canvas soon. He trusts her and leaves, but Verso knows that she's lying. He finds a remnant of his soul that's been stuck in the canvas, who you've seen continuously throughout the game painting, keeping the canvas alive. Verso sees that he's miserable and just wants to stop, but Alicia doesn't want him to because she just wants him to stay. The game then presents you with the hardest choice I have ever had to make in a game. Fight as Alicia and let the world live on, or fight as Verso and let the canvas and the last part of him rest. I had grown so attached to all of these characters of this world. I also wanted the world to live on, but I knew that the correct thing to do would be to let the canvas die, so that the family could heal together and not be trapped in this world hiding from their grief. It's such a bittersweet ending. You see the family together in the real world at Verso's grave. It was not the ending I wanted, but I knew it was the correct ending, and the one that was needed. Going back to see Alicia's ending, it's clear that it's the worst one. Yes, everyone you've grown to love and care about comes back, and it seems happy, but then you see Verso walk onto the stage. You see the pain in his face and his light sobs. It's incredibly poetic that the game chooses to end that ending there, with Verso about to perform for everyone, because that's what's happening in this ending. He's being kept alive and made to suffer for the enjoyment of everyone else. This story is about so many things. It's about loss. It's about moving on from death. It's about letting your children grow up and make their own mistakes. It's about destructive cycles and how they can destroy a family and so much more. You know, I lost my father when I was 14, and I didn't get the support that I needed from my mother, just like Alicia. And just a few years ago, my stepfather tragically passed away as well. It completely tore my family apart, and it will never be the same again. So watching the story play out at the end, it broke my heart. This game touched me in a way that no other game has before. I can understand why someone might not feel as passionately about it as I do, because it is such a personal experience. But this game will stick with me for the rest of my life. I hope that this game isn't relatable to you. If not, I hope that you can still find enjoyment in the game and the beauty in the story that it's trying to tell, because it truly is touching and somewhat hopeful in a way. I've heard George R. R. Martin quote William Faulkner and say that the only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself. I wholeheartedly agree, and I think that this game exemplifies that perfectly. It's a powerful story for someone, and that's what art is truly all about. Touching other people, even if it won't have the same effect on everyone, if it just gives one person something worthwhile in their heart, then it was worth it. I know that there's more to this game. There's a whole secret boss and a bunch of content I didn't do, but I'll probably save that for a second playthrough. I think this game deserves a second playthrough. The ending recontextualizes the entire game and gives new meaning to almost all of the dialogue. So I'd love to go back and replay it someday, so I can truly appreciate all the clues and hints that have been sprinkled throughout the game. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed watching me do some of my art here at the end. Granted, it's a little less impactful and purposeful as this beautiful story was, but hey, you know, if one person enjoys it, then it's worth it. I'm not sure what game I'm going to cover next. It sure as shit won't be one that's so emotionally charged as this one. I'm honestly a little upset I covered this game so early, because how on earth do I follow up this game? It may be my favorite of all time, but I guess I'll figure that out. Have a good one, and hate to go back.